Hope you enjoy today's TQM short story.
And while you're here, please like and subscribe.
I guess one of, maybe if not my favourite episode that we did last year, and which involved a couple of great guests, was the Wandsworth haunting with Monet, who had the experience when she was a child, and her mother, who's the singer, Mica, who went on to get an MBE after that episode came out. I'm not sure we had any influence over it. There's a good summary. So what we've done in this, so the first part of the main episode was hearing their story. The second part was us revealing some of the research that we'd done. In this clip that we're going to play you now, we've condensed the two together. So it's a little brief summary, but if you've not heard the full episodes, definitely recommend going and checking them out, but this will give you a good flavour anyway. Have a listen.
There's a few things that stick out to me, but the first one, I was about 7 and I was in my bed and I woke up in the morning and I could see this floating head. So I looked in the mirror and I could see that the bed was like raised off the floor, and I said to her, "Can you see that?" And she said, "Yes."
Then Monet went in the bathroom one day and she was looking in the mirror and she saw someone looking back at her, and it was an old woman, and came in, ran in, freaked out. And I was like, oh my God, this place is a joke.
I would always say that house was haunted. Like, my mum refers to it as a haunted house. So does my grandma, like my uncle. Everybody knows that house is haunted. Like, that's what they refer to it to. Still to this day, that's the haunted house that we lived in, you know.
But for some reason, couldn't get rid of these flies, and they were all circulated in one place on the floor. They were just constantly there, and we were like, what the hell? Come to find out later on what it was, that someone had died there.
So I was in my mum's bed with her, and then I could see this like man at the end of her bed. I guess maybe it was like a shadow. I'm not sure though. It was something, some sort of figure at her bed. And she did throw either a book or a Bible at the figure, and then it disappeared.
I was in her room one day on my own, and I literally heard 2 people walking up and down the stairs. And I was the only person in the house. I saw this horror movie the other day, and it was exactly that. And I was like, oh my God, that happened to us.
I widened my search around specific houses on the road that you lived on and the general area of Wandsworth Common.
Yeah.
And there are a number of sites on the Common, as we've said. After a bit of digging, I came across an account in a book by a famous paranormal investigator and writer from the early 1900s, someone called Elliot O'Donnell. Now, in 1909, he published a book on his investigations into the paranormal, and it's called Haunted Houses of London. So you can still go and check this book out. And in that book, among other stories, he details accounts from people who were haunted while living in a house attached to Wandsworth Common. I also found another article which linked the stories that he talks about in his book to a house on the road that you lived in. Now, I'm going to summarise and quote some extracts from the book by Elliot O'Donnell, published in 1909, but the events listed happened in the late 1800s. But the staircase arrested my attention the moment I entered the house. Why, I cannot exactly say, but there was something indefinably odd about it. That night, we both lay awake and heard the stairs creak and groan as if feet of innumerable people trod up and down them.
Oh, gosh.
So this paranormal activity in the house continues with the family's daughter, Molly. He recounts a story where the staircase actually started moving and attacked her, pressing her up against a wall. There is another account from a nephew that stayed in the house, was up late working in the study downstairs when a noise brought him out into the hallway. He describes what happens next. The staircase was fairly alive with ghosts. There was a regular procession of them, men and women, I could distinguish the difference in the sexes more by the touch of their dresses than by their voices, for I could not hear anything they said directly. Indeed, they only seemed to speak in whispers. Now, the author of the book I'm quoting from, Elliot O'Donnell, then gets in touch with someone else who has lived in the house. O'Donnell writes, "Some months after meeting Mr. Scarron, I was introduced to a lady in London who remarked that she had once lived in the haunted house in Wandsworth. I begged her to give me her experiences, and she told me that day after day she had been disturbed by an old woman who used to chatter outside her bedroom door. Both she and her sister often saw the old woman in various parts of the house, generally on the staircase and flitting about the passages."
Oh, God.
O'Donnell then goes into a different account, which he believed was from another occupant of the same house. Monet, it was when I read this account, I got the most incredible goosebumps. And when you hear it, I think you will understand why.
Oh my God, I got chills.
O'Donnell details an interview he conducted with Mrs. Newville. He writes, "I again heard of the haunted house at Wandsworth Common from a Mrs. Newville who kindly described in detail the phenomenon she had witnessed in it. The most remarkable feature in the house, Mrs. Newville observed to me, was the main staircase, which was, I think, the most gloomy and suggestive staircase I have ever seen. I never passed it without a shiver and the uncanny conviction that it was alive. Absurd as you may think it, I have actually felt that staircase looking at me, and I could be certain that more than once it has moved noiselessly and stealthily forward, stepping back again the instant it perceived I was on the alert. I grew so terrified at it that I positively dreaded to be even within sight of it after dusk. I had never known what fear was until I lived in that house and watched the fading sunlight on those grim, forbidding stairs. I tell you, Mr. O'Donnell, there were certain bends in that staircase and certain steps that I never loitered upon, but always flew past and was convinced they harboured some strange, hideous creature. Well, one evening in August, as I was sitting alone in the study about 8 o'clock, I heard my aunt call from her bedroom, which was on the first floor. The rest of the family being out, I at once grew in a panic, for I funked the idea of the staircase, and at the same time dreading to keep my aunt waiting, as her crotchety temper, if the slightest thing went wrong, was very hard to bear. Hence I was on the horns of the most unpleasant dilemma. My aunt called again, and fearing to dally any longer, I threw down my book and, hastening out of the room, made for those awful stairs. I ascended as fast as I could, without daring even to raise my eyes, until a peculiar bluish light playing on the silver buckles of my shoes compelled me to glance up. And there on the landing, directly above me and some 6 or so feet from the ground, was a ball of cerulean phosphorus that developed quite suddenly into a ghastly head. A floating head.
Oh, yeah, that's what she saw in the mirror.
A floating.
Yeah, but she saw it in the mirror, though. She saw it in the mirror. But remember, the bathroom was at the top of the stairs, you know?
Oh,
Wow.
God.
There you go. Well done on the research, though. Well done. My God.
That was just so spooky. That's exactly what that description is exactly what I saw.
Thank you so much, Peter. Fabulous.
Pleasure.
And Ben, I love you guys.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear the whole episode, find the link in the description. If you want to get exclusive stuff and help us make more content, support us at patreon.com/TQM pod or click the link on the YouTube homepage.